Copyright disclaimer. This channel published a video on the final scene from the Sopranos series finale. The video features an analysis supporting three assertions. Tony Soprano was assassinated, Carmella and Anthony Jr. were unintentionally killed in the process, and MEADOW alone survived the ordeal. In response, a viewer raised a question concerning the Sopranos 2022 Super Bowl car commercial that features a reunion between MEADOW and Anthony Jr. The question is this: can a storyline that features a meeting between Soprano siblings in 2022 coexist with an analysis of the series finale that argues Anthony Jr. was murdered in 2007? The following analysis attempts to answer this question. The Sopranos 2022 Super Bowl car commercial for the 2024 Chevy Silverado EV features the reunion of Sopranos siblings MEADOW and Anthony Jr. During the scene featured in the commercial, MEADOW drives from Manhattan to Highlands, New Jersey in the latest edition of the car brand once favored by her infamous father. When she arrives at the seaside restaurant, Bar's Landing in Marina, she meets up with her brother and the two share an embrace. While the commercial portrays a sibling reunion, the analysis presented here maintains that Anthony Jr. was murdered in 2007 and that he appears to MEADOW in 2022 as a spirit or as a manifestation of her own wish fulfillment. To make the case, we will start by examining each character and then look into some key symbolic elements surrounding their embrace. Be prepared, a lot of the symbolism appears physically small and fleeting on screen. Nevertheless, the symbolism is there, and the scene is surprisingly dense with meaning. MEADOW is clearly the featured character in the scene. She drives alone from Manhattan to New Jersey along the same route made famous by her father. Instead of arriving at the family home, however, MEADOW pulls into an EV charging station across the street from the seaside restaurant Bar's Landing. On the drive, she appears confident and sophisticated. When she arrives, she parks the car, exits the car, and connects the EV charger to the car battery portal. She then proceeds toward the restaurant to greet her brother out front in the parking lot. Through her physical interactions with the material world, we know that MEADOW is alive and well. As we will explore later in the presentation, the same cannot be said of Anthony Jr. The jewelry that MEADOW wears in this scene functions as a storytelling device, one that conforms to the theory that a triple homicide took place in the series finale. To start, notice the following three shots of MEADOW's right hand on her drive out to New Jersey. In the first shot, we see her take off her sunglasses. In the second shot, we see a profile of her hands holding the steering wheel as an airplane appears to hover in the windshield. In the third shot, we see a close-up focused on MEADOW's right wrist with her hand poised on the steering wheel. Looking across the three shots, we can observe three pieces of jewelry. There is a man's pinky ring with an inlaid onyx stone on her middle finger, a narrow gold band on her fourth finger, and finally, a diamond tennis bracelet on her wrist. The three pieces of memorial jewelry honor the three family members she lost in 2007. Let's step through them one at a time. First, the pinky ring represents Tony. While this is not the ruby and gold pinky ring associated with Tony in life, it nevertheless conjures his image. In this case, the black onyx reflects a more dignified version of the iconic ring, one that is more appropriate to memorialize her father in death. Next, the gold wedding band represents Carmella. Rather than the diamond-studded wedding ring Carmella wore in life, MEADOW wears a simple gold band on her ring finger to signify her parents' marital bond. Wearing the symbolic wedding band alongside her pinky ring, MEADOW pairs together the symbols of her mother and father, respectively. Finally, the diamond tennis bracelet represents Anthony Jr. While the two rings memorializing her parents are solemn and spare, the bracelet is lively and vibrant, indicating that it represents something special to MEADOW. Growing up together, it would only be natural that MEADOW should feel a special closeness to her baby brother. Moreover, his death at such a young age is especially tragic. In this way, the bracelet may reflect an effort to celebrate his short life rather than mourn his untimely death. Her choice of stone for the bracelet is appropriate in this case, given that Anthony Jr. wore a single diamond earring in the final scene at Holston's restaurant. The bracelet not only features a single diamond centerpiece, it is also diamond-studded around the chain. Interestingly, if we go back to 2007, we can see that Meadow wore no jewelry on her right hand as she attempted to park outside Holston's restaurant. From that moment 15 years ago to this moment, the only thing we know of that might cause Meadow to wear 3 pieces of jewelry on her right hand are the deaths of her father, mother, and younger brother. The pinky ring that Meadow wears as a tribute to her father resonates on a higher symbolic level. The black color and rectangular shape of the onyx stone represents a miniature depiction of the controversial cut-to-black ending from the Sopranos series finale. If we accept that the cut-to-black ending is itself a metaphor for death, the ring Meadow wears memorializes the death of her father exactly as we, the audience, saw it portrayed on screen. Meadow's ring selection likewise makes sense when we recall that the cut-to-black ending also depicts her own final contact with her father. Note that there is a similar theory applied to the black monolith in Kubrick's 2001 Space Odyssey. Specifically, that the black monolith meant to represent a condensed totality of transformative intelligence in the universe doubles as a symbolic representation of the movie screen on which the film itself is viewed. Taken together, the black onyx stone inset on Meadow's ring and the black monolith featured in Kubrick's science fiction masterpiece both reference the screens on which their own stories are told. Anthony Jr. is ethereal, mysterious, and associated with existential symbolism throughout the scene. To start our assessment, let's compare how each sibling arrives at the reunion. The vast majority of the scene is dedicated to Meadow driving in from Manhattan. Scenic images and iconic milestones chart her path almost from start to finish. Anthony Jr., on the other hand, is already waiting for her at the destination. We have no idea where he came from. When the camera cuts from Meadow pulling into the charging station to a wide shot of her Silverado, we first discover Anthony Jr. on the far right margin of the frame. He is minuscule and anonymous as he stands alone behind an open driver's side car door in the restaurant parking lot. The mise-en-scène mirrors the distinct treatment of the two siblings by drawing our attention to Anthony's tiny red car in the background, trailing behind Meadow's massive blue EV in the foreground. There are 2 cars in the bar's landing parking lot that are both visually associated with Anthony Jr. Let's start with the car he appears to exit from when Meadow first pulls up. While the pentagonal hood ornament is absent, the car is definitely a burgundy 1985 Chrysler New Yorker Turbo. The Turbo is the only model that has side vents on the front quarter panel. We can see them on the side of the Chrysler here. The model year of the car is interesting because 1985 is also the year Anthony Jr. was born. The burgundy color of the car visually ties together some symbolic elements in the mise-en-scène which we will discuss later. In the meantime, the next car to consider is a hearse. The hearse is positioned on a diagonal behind Anthony Jr. when he appears in his first medium shot. Before we discuss the hearse further, we will pause here to insert a disclaimer. Given that the vehicle is obscured from view, we cannot know to a certainty that it is a hearse. We cannot discern a landau top, nor do we see the iconic decorative landau bar. However, we do see a wide chrome pillar design element partitioning the rear portion of the car. Like the landau bar, the wide chrome pillar is a design element common to the hearse. Between the black color, the basic shape, and the chrome pillar, there is enough here to create an at-a-glance impression of a hearse. With these caveats in mind, we will refer to the car as a hearse going forward, and, as we will see, there are 2 compositional elements that link Anthony Jr. to the hearse. First, each takes up a position in the frame relative to the other. The hearse is set furthest into the background of the parking lot, while Anthony Jr. alone inhabits the foreground of the parking lot. Second, both the car and Anthony Jr. share pitch black features. The hearse is the only car on the lot with a clearly visible open window. The open window produces a small black void in the background. Ironically, the void is conspicuous in a scene otherwise bathed evenly in a mild late afternoon sunlight. Similarly, Anthony's all-black clothing is cast in shadow as he walks forward. Elements of his silhouette are pure black. This draws our attention to the hearse, compelling us to make a visual connection. Before we move on, let's pause to consider that the 2 cars associated with Anthony Jr., the burgundy Chrysler New Yorker Turbo and the at-a-glance black hearse, conjure concepts of birth and death respectively. The burgundy Chrysler draws our attention to two notable elements found in the scene. First, the color connects us to three red lights posted on the roof above the entrance to Barr's Landing. These lights recall the multiple instances of lights arranged in triplicate inside and outside Holston's on the night of the triple homicide in 2007. Second, we are visually compelled to take note of a third person present in the scene, the stranger wearing a red cap. We will discuss him in more detail when we assess the siblings' embrace. Incidentally, the burgundy Chrysler also recalls the color of the vinyl upholstery on the booth at Holston's where Anthony Jr. was murdered. Two additional items to note concerning our first shot of Anthony Jr. We will start with the presence of a lighthouse as a symbolic metaphor. If we juxtapose this shot to the previous shot of MEADOW pulling into the EV charging station, we find that Anthony Jr. inhabits the same vertical plane as the lighthouse depicted on the rear license plate of her Silverado. The juxtaposition draws our attention from the lighthouse to Anthony Jr., forming the metaphoric connection. The metaphor itself would indicate that Anthony Jr. guides and protects MEADOW in this life, not usually the role of a younger sibling. The lighthouse metaphor resonates that much more given the siblings meet at a seaside marina. The next item to note involves Anthony's unusual exit from his car. When we first see Anthony Jr., the car door behind which he stands is already open. As we watch the car door begin to close, Anthony Jr. falls completely off the right edge of the frame. He simply disappears before the scene cuts away. As a result, we do not see Anthony Jr. open the car door, nor do we see Anthony Jr. close the car door. We can generalize on this observation. Unlike MEADOW, we do not see Anthony Jr. interact with any inanimate objects throughout the scene. It is as if his presence in the material world is an illusion. There appears to be a fleeting depiction of Anthony Jr. as a priest wearing a white tab collar. During the final frames of his first medium shot, the shadow from the setting sun forms a collarette around Anthony's neck. Meanwhile, an unseen light source to his right narrows focus as he walks forward. Before the scene cuts away, the light forms a white square below his Adam's apple. The white square completes the tab collar effect. As the image coalesces, Anthony Jr. appears serene and reflective like a young priest walking the grounds of a monastery. Finally, there is a curious interplay of symbolism. The size and shape of the white tab collar mirrors the black void on the hearse in the background. This is perhaps a nod to the notion of life after death. Ultimately, Anthony Jr. is cast in a priestly role conjured for a brief moment from the play of light and shadow. The embrace between the siblings is the centerpiece of the scene. This is the dramatic culmination of the scene as well. Through the embrace, we obtain more information to confirm that Anthony Jr. is a spirit. Likewise, we get a hint as to why MEADOW has come all this way to see her brother. If we start from the assumption that Anthony Jr. is deceased, we can assign a particular role to the stranger in the red cap. This tiny, seemingly insignificant figure is there to pull back the veil that separates the living from the dead. He is there to create a space between these realms where the siblings can meet for their embrace. The stranger emerges in a space that falls between dissonance and consonance. He first appears on screen after a two-shot montage produces a subtle distortion in our spatial orientation. In the previous shot, we see a close-up on MEADOW plugging the EV charger into the car battery portal with her right hand. When we cut out to the wide shot, which introduces the stranger in the red cap, MEADOW is now holding the same EV charger in her left hand. It is as if we are shown a mirror image of MEADOW in his presence. Following this distortion, the stranger moves in concert with the siblings as part of a brief, choreographed procession. When MEADOW releases the EV charger from her left hand, she puts her left foot forward as she starts to walk toward her brother. From that point on, we can see that MEADOW, Anthony Jr., and the stranger walk in step with one another. Each puts the same foot forward at the same time. The stranger seems to coordinate the cadence of the procession, a coordination that presumably guides each sibling to the other across their respective realms of existence. As Anthony Jr. prepares for the embrace, he is surrounded by archetypal symbolism. At the start, he stands with his arms down at his sides facing the sun in a medium shot. The Highlands Reach Bridge sprawls out above his shoulders behind him. The bridge traverses the entire frame. His 1985 Chrysler New Yorker Turbo is situated beside him to his lower left. As he steps forward toward Meadow and lifts his arms to initiate the embrace, we see the hearse emerge from behind his back. If we observe the frame as a flat two-dimensional composition, we see one car representing death behind him and the other car representing birth in front of him. Between the two, we see a bridge intersecting with Anthony Jr. As he continues to move toward Meadow, he moves along the bridge between life and death. Death and shadow are behind him, light and life are before him. When Meadow initiates the embrace from her side, we can see two differences in the presentation of the jewelry on her right hand as she rests it over Anthony's left shoulder. Compared to what we saw during her drive from Manhattan, we do not see the diamond-studded tennis bracelet she wears to remember her brother. It is as if the bracelet conjures the presence of Anthony Jr. and upon doing so, disappears from view. Likewise, notice that the black onyx stone on the pinky ring is now also hidden from view. The pinky ring is rolled over on her middle finger in such a way that we see only the gold band. We will return to discuss the implications of the hidden onyx stone. Death surrounds Anthony Jr. as he moves toward Meadow. We can say this because we see his presence encircle Meadow in darkness. Dressed in black himself, he almost appears to emanate from the void inset within the hearse behind him. For example, notice that the blacked-out window on the hearse lines up with Anthony's dark and shadowy outsized arm as he wraps it around Meadow's shoulder in the next shot. As Anthony Jr. steps forward toward Meadow, another black car emerges in front of him. Traveling from left to right across the screen, the newly spawned car proceeds to pass behind the siblings' embrace. Between Anthony's arm reaching around Meadow on her front left side and the black car passing behind Meadow on her back right side, she is encircled in darkness. The circle is complete when the car passing behind the siblings is perfectly concealed in the outline of their embrace. Notice that Anthony's right elbow overlaps the nose of the car as it moves across the screen. The presence of the black car can be seen as a spectral manifestation of Anthony Jr. The two collude to overwhelm the scene. As Anthony Jr. covers Meadow in the nothingness of his black jacket, the black car emerges from behind their embrace to eclipse her Silverado charging in the background. By contrast, recall that when Anthony Jr. first appeared to us mere moments before, he was little more than an anonymous speck in the background. The degree to which Anthony Jr. overwhelms Meadow, however, speaks only to her love for her brother and her own sadness at losing him. Now that we have discussed Anthony Jr. in the context of the embrace, we can more fully explain why the black onyx stone on Meadow's middle finger is hidden from view. In the same way the diamond bracelet is hidden because Anthony Jr. is present, the onyx stone is hidden because death is also present. The diamond bracelet symbolizes Anthony's life, the onyx stone itself symbolizes death. And Anthony Jr. is dead in this scene. When Meadow embraces her brother, she transcends the dichotomy of life and death. In that instant, the two symbols that preserve and memorialize either side of that dichotomy become irrelevant and disappear from view. As it relates to the onyx stone specifically, we can go one step further. The process by which Anthony Jr. encircles Meadow in darkness during the embrace can be interpreted as a metaphoric representation of Meadow stepping into the cut-to-black ending to commune with her brother. When Meadow hugs Anthony Jr., we see her left hand for the first time as she places it on his right shoulder. While the rings on her right hand memorialize the past, the rings on her left hand portend the future. Meadow is engaged to be married and is very likely already pregnant. To start, Meadow wears an engagement ring on her ring finger. We have no reason to believe that the ring is an artifact from her engagement to Patrick Parisi. Her cool and confident demeanor on the drive-out gives no indication that she is a woman trapped in the past. Meadow also wears a gold ring on her middle finger. Basic symbology on the topic suggests a bold ring like hers worn on the middle finger projects strength, power, stability, and balance. Meadow reflects all of these qualities en route to her meeting with Anthony Jr. Based on these two simple factors, we can surmise that her engagement ring is new and that her nuptials are pending. We also have reason to believe that Meadow is pregnant. The evidence here is oblique but compelling. To make the case, we will compare the new driving sequence featuring Meadow to the original driving sequence featuring her father. Throughout the majority of the drive from Manhattan to New Jersey, the order and arrangement of camera shots are virtually identical. There is, however, one crucial edit. The edit appears after the shot of the Paul Bunyan statue outside of Wilson's Carpet and Furniture, but before the shot of a man walking up the street wearing a white ball cap and carrying a white bag. In the original sequence, Tony passes a gloomy street-side graveyard. In the new sequence, Meadow passes an empty park and playground featuring a lone child riding a bike. In other words, the new sequence replaces an image of death with an image of life. More specifically, the new sequence features a place where children play. Insofar as the scenery in each version reflects the life of the character behind the wheel, we cannot but associate that new life to Meadow. Tony puts people in the graveyard, Meadow puts people on the playground. The engagement ring and the prospect of a pregnancy would explain why Meadow has come to see Anthony Jr. today of all days. This is not a reunion for its own sake. She is here to tell him that she is getting married. She is here to tell him that she is pregnant. She is here to tell him that she must now move on with her life. In this respect, the purpose of the sibling reunion is not to say hello after so many years apart, but to say farewell after so many years together in grief over his untimely death. While the Sopranos 2022 Super Bowl car commercial features the reunion of Meadow and Anthony Jr., only Meadow is present in the physical world. We have plenty of evidence for Meadow. We know how she gets to the reunion. We travel with her from Manhattan to New Jersey. She interacts with the world around her. We see her drive, park, get out, and charge her car. She has a story. While the rings on her right hand memorialize the past, the rings on her left hand portend the future. Meadow has continued to live in this world since 2007 and is now preparing to have a family of her own. The portrayal of Anthony Jr. suggests something else. He appears to exist as many things and nothing. He is a brother, he is a bracelet, he is a lighthouse, he is a priest, he is miniature, and then he is overwhelming. We do not know where he came from before the reunion. We never see him make direct contact with the physical world except when he embraces his sister. There are no clues to indicate what he may have experienced in life over the years since we last saw him. During his brief time on screen, he is visually associated with symbolic images of birth, death, and his own murder at Holston's in 2007. The embrace itself is an amalgam of silence, solemnity, and the sublime. No words are spoken. When we see Anthony Jr. begin to reach out to Meadow, he radiates a kind of gentleness and serenity as if he is already at peace. When Meadow steps forward to receive Anthony Jr., her eyes redden and well up with tears. This is not a simple, joyous meeting. Something serious is taking place. After the siblings make their embrace, we only see Meadow's face. We only see her reaction. We never see Anthony's face again. That is because the reunion depicted here is about Meadow. Meadow must say farewell to her brother so that she can live her own life and be a mother to her own child. Interestingly, the first time we see Meadow at all, we see her right hand adjusting something on the dashboard touchscreen. In that fleeting shot, we can see the diamond tennis bracelet riding up onto her black shirt sleeve. We can see the diamonds catch the light. In this way, the first shot and the last shot of the scene pair Meadow and Anthony Jr. At this point, we can return to the question posed by the viewer cited in the preface to this video. Can a commercial storyline that features a meeting between Meadow and Anthony Jr. set in 2022 coexist with an analysis of the series finale that argues Anthony Jr. was murdered in 2007? The answer to this question is yes. Yes, because the young man we see in 2022 passed away in 2007 and has been allowed to return to absolve his sister of her grief and to bless her decision to move on with her life. Also note that the commercial substantiates the theory presented in our original analysis that all three family members were murdered at Holston's diner. Likewise, the commercial picks up on the theme discussed concerning Meadow and motherhood. Now that the crime family no longer poses a risk to Meadow, she is able to start her own family.